Goeiedag, mijn naam is Evan, ik is immigratieprocureur here in America, and ik wil jou help om immigratiewet te verstaan. Now, today's video is not going to be a very happy one, but I told you that I would pull no punches, and as news funnels down to me, that I would give all of my viewers inside Africa and here in the United States the information that I get, whether it's good or it's bad. And so, unfortunately, we still have more bad news for Afrikaner asylum seekers here in the United States. Now, before I go even one step further, if you're new here, go watch my previous videos. I'm an immigration attorney and a law professor in the United States. I know the difference between asylum seekers and refugee programs. However, they use the same law, the same nomenclature, the same terminology, so it is relevant to know both of them. And many of my viewers here are currently here in the United States on work visas, such as H visas, and they are applying for asylum, so it is completely relevant to them. And also they have family members still inside Africa who want to hear this information as well. So it's important. So yes, there is a big distinction, but an asylum seeker, and this is who the bad news is geared to, but you'll see why I'm also talking to refugees here. This is bad news for Afrikaners currently in the United States seeking asylum, not any of the refugees who have already come here or people who are applying for the refugee program, with one exception that I'll explain in just a second. So I say that because some idiot, and I will say idiot, because if you don't do your research and you just make a video and you throw stuff out there trying to belittle a group of people or undermine a program, then you're an idiot. If you make a genuine mistake, that's fine. But someone made a video last time in response to my bad news for Afrikaner asylum seekers, thinking that I was talking about the refugees and that refugees are getting denied and sent back, and that's not happening, so we won't even go there. That's nonsense. It's bullcrap, and you know that. But the bad news for the asylum seekers is I, again, only have emails, calls, texts from Afrikaners who have already had their USCIS interview and have been rejected. And many of these people are telling me the stories that they told, and these are stories of violence and attacks and arson and other things that I can't say on YouTube, but you understand. Not leading with BEE or economic issues, because as you know, the United States does not recognize economic refugees or economic asylees. So they've been doing all of the things correctly. Now, I can't say with 100% that they did it spot on because I wasn't there. I didn't prep them. These aren't clients of my law firm. These are just people reaching out to me because, as I've told you, it seems like Afrikaners here in the States who do have counsel and have applied for asylum, their interview dates aren't coming as quickly as non-represented Afrikaners. So I can't speak to any of the people that we represent here, only the anecdotes and the stories that I get from other people. But I did get an email from someone who said that, you know, Evan, you're right. Even though Trump issued this executive order, it seems like USCIS is ignoring it. He told me they didn't even read through his case before they interviewed him, and they didn't even let him speak, which they may not let you. This does happen a lot of times. This interview, you know, like I said, this isn't what you're thinking, where it's the government is holding out its hands and saying, welcome to the United States, you know, we're here to protect you. It's adversarial. It's meant to be confrontational to make sure that you are deserving of asylum. And even when you are deserving of asylum, many times you still get rejected because that's just how difficult this process is. There are Afrikaners here in the States who will vouch for me that I have told them, do not hire my law firm, do something else. Asylum is too risky, it's too difficult, you need to look at other options. And hand to God, I've told people that. I've turned down money for my firm to do that because of how difficult this process is. And I'm only going to shoot you straight and tell you the truth. But this person said, the interviewer said they'll do their own research, which they can do, because after your interview, you then get told to come back after a certain amount of time to pick up your decision. Now, this person, unfortunately, was ordered removed. And what happens with a removal order is you get referred to immigration court. Now, I know this is a true story because they shared their NTA with me. That's the notice to appear. That's what you get, which says you must show up to court on this date. So I know this is factual. It happened. And they also sent me the referral notice. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say anything about this individual, but I'm going to put something up on the screen here because now this goes back to my refugee applicants nog steeds binnen South Africa. Those of you who are still there. And I know that most of my, viewers who are here constantly, you trust my opinion, you value my opinion, I appreciate that. But I've been saying forever now that the third requirement of the refugee program, for you to articulate a well-founded fear of future persecution or to articulate that you've experienced past persecution, it is so very important to practice that and truly get your narrative correct, because it's not just saying, and I go back and watch a video that I did called Afrikaner Refugee Interview Tips, where that couple told their story to a news outlet. And of course, it was just the news, it wasn't an interview, but you all correctly noticed they didn't connect the nexus, right? They didn't say all this violence happened to me because of my race. And if you don't do that, it doesn't matter how violent the acts are, it doesn't count as persecution, right? And persecution is more than mere discrimination, harassment. It rises to an extreme level. So for all of my refugees, I've told you this comes from asylum law, and I've told you how difficult it is to prove past or the well-founded fear of future persecution and why you need to prepare. Well, now I want to show you something. This clip comes directly from this individual's referral notice to immigration court. I want you to see what it says. It says, for the reasons described below, USCIS, which by the way is the group that will be interviewing refugees as well, has not found you eligible for asylum and has not granted your claim for asylum. And here are the reasons. Reason one, and they can give a bunch of reasons, but just to show you the two reasons they picked for this individual, this Afrikaner here in the United States, who did send me his evidence, showed me pictures of burned out buildings, all sorts of stuff. So, and you know that I believe all Afrikaners' claims of persecution, but let's see what the government says. Past persecution. You have not established that you are a refugee because, now let's stop there real quick. I've told you, the terminology, the law, the definitions, the expressions, the nomenclature used in asylum law is the same stuff that's used for refugees. So for a lot of people who have been fighting me and saying that, well, no, it's going to be different for the refugees. No, it's not. USCIS is going to use the same standards. The only difference there is that word articulate as opposed to establish or prove. Right? Where in asylum, the burden seems wholly on the individual filing for asylum. And in the refugee program, they use the term articulate, which means to describe or to explain. So, but regardless, I'm just showing you how high the burden is and how prepared you need to be. Not to scare you. I think that 99.9%, if not all, people who go to the refugee interviews and are honest about their experience will be accepted. But why give them even the little bit of chance to deny you? Be as prepared as you can, right? Say, this is the extreme level of conduct that I experienced, the life-threatening, danger to life and limb. That's how extreme it has to be. And then prove, even if all you can do is articulate it, that it was because of my race, or that you fear persecution in the future, the EFF, the kill the Boer, the one bullet, the one settler, the farm murders, and that is all connected, not simply because South Africa is a failed state full of crime, but all of that is attacking me because I'm white or because I'm an Afrikaner, right? So the asylum applicants are held to the refugee standard, right? The only difference is an asylee is someone who's currently here and a refugee can't be, but it uses the term refugee. So the same standards apply to y'all, and I've been telling you this, which is why you have to be prepared. Now watch the two reasons. Past persecution. You have not established that any harm you experienced in the past, considering incidents both individually and cumulatively, amount to persecution, right? So it doesn't necessarily say that the nexus wasn't connected, but it says all of the acts that this person experienced don't rise to the level of extreme and outrageous conduct, which is persecution. So even though this person experienced some pretty crazy stuff, USCIS said, no, that didn't amount to persecution, to past persecution. What is the second reason he was denied? The future persecution. You have not established there is a reasonable possibility you would suffer persecution in the future. So this USCIS asylum officer, apparently, according to this person's anecdotal testimony to me, said they were going to do the research themselves, and after looking into South Africa and all the information around the persecution of Afrikaners and other ethnic minorities, she said, you have not proven that you individually or as a group, the group you belong to, would suffer persecution if you were returned to South Africa. So, yeah, right? It's tough. And everything y'all are telling me is persecution in my eyes, but here's USCIS denying it, even in spite of the fact that President Trump has created a refugee program which acknowledges that this is actually a thing and it's happening in South Africa. So the two reasons I bring up this video is one, for asylum seekers here in the United States. Again, I have no evidence since February's executive order of any Afrikaners getting an asylum grant. If you are and if you have, reach out to me, because I'd like to give good news on this channel for once, as well. But unfortunately, we don't have that yet. So I have heard no evidence of any Afrikaners being granted asylum. And for my refugees, I wanted to show you, since USCIS is the one, refugee officers, not asylum officers, but same organization, giving you your interview, of how important it is for you to understand the definition of persecution. It is extreme and outrageous levels of conduct, and it rises above mere discrimination and harassment. Understand what that is. And to understand that you have to connect it to that nexus, that it either happened to you in the past because you're white or you're an Afrikaner or other ethnic minority, or you fear it in the future, not simply because there's crime and violence, but because it's being directed at you because of this protected characteristic, that being your race. So again, I apologize for having nothing but bad news, but I did want to share this with you. As always, remember to like, subscribe, share, and I will see you for the next video.